Action Comics 1081, Mark Waid writing with Clayton Henry on the art. We're wrapping up the 12-week story, this Phantom Zone story that we've been doing since the start of October. So finally here to wrap this up. And we've been kind of up and down on it a little bit. It's been kind of maybe, positive, but a sort of muted positive, kind of like, yeah, it's all right. It's had its ups and downs, but in the end, probably not that, like all-timer story maybe you'd hope for from like a 12-issue Mark Waid Superman story. In this final part, I don't think shakes that feeling for me. Mainly because, one, obviously it kept evolving into new segments, which is fine, but it felt like all the segments were kind of rushed. This final issue, where it seems like all the super family are ambushed by the final dozen or so Kryptonians that are on the loose, because now that Xadu is back, which was kind of eye-rolling when it happened last issue. What I said on the show was that I'm glad it was Xadu that came back from death and not Aether, because at least Xadu was a little bit more interesting than him, but it still was a bit eye-rolly. But they capture the super family, they claim they've got this big device that will mimic the explosion of Krypton and basically turn all the Kryptonians in the Superman family into kryptonite themselves, so they'll basically die from within over time, which is very vicious sounding.
But, I was like, man, this is dark. Xadu does not play.
But this is all a bunch of bullshit, because Darkseid's crack opens up behind them in space, and out comes the real Xadu, who says this is a sham, and it turns out that the Xadu we've been looking at is Martian Manhunter. This is a trap. This big device is actually a Phantom Zone projector to get them all back in the Phantom Zone, meaning that the entire beating the super family took was just a ruse. It was just them pretending to lose so the villains thought they'd won, which is a little contrived, right, for one. So that bothers me, right? I'm sure you enjoyed Connor Kent saying they jobbed out to the villains because it's a wrestling reference, but
100%. I did like that.
That's about it. But my bigger problem is that you come up with this ruse. Martian Manhunter, while pretending to be Xadu, says he literally crawled through this abyss that he was in space for a millennia. For every hour that passed here, it was hundreds of years for him, climbing to get back out, plotting his revenge, which, for something to just throw in here at the end, is like really so big, high concept that it's hard to just sort of take seriously. It just feels kind of like, yeah, sure, whatever, I believe you. Yeah, what, it doesn't feel like it has any weight to it. But for that to all be a lie, and then the second that the plan's going to succeed, the real Xadu does come back from certain death, like through a crack in time. This is just contrived as shit. There's nothing that I can feel about the real Xadu popping back out here other than a huge, massive contrivance.
Well, and how does he reveal Martian Manhunter as Martian Manhunter? I don't understand that.
He just grabs him and slams him down, and Martian Manhunter just, I guess the pain makes him lose concentration on his shapeshifting.
I guess. But yeah, so that was a little bit weird. This one ultimately left me feeling like, because there were parts of the story that I really enjoyed, and we all know that it had to wrap up, but I don't know. Like you said, contrived is the perfect word. It just, I don't feel fulfilled by where the story ended up.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it turning out to be a ruse. You could have just had them succeed. Why did the real Xadu have to show up? Because that just took any... Because it's a little contrived that this was all a plan, and they let themselves get beat up. That's all one thing. But as soon as the real Xadu's shown up at the last second to interfere, that just, takes any contrivance that was there and multiply it by 1,000. Because all of a sudden, there's so many factors here that just feel so forced. And obviously, the plan ends up working. They blast the big device with their heat vision. It projects them all back to the Phantom Zone, which is now actually back to being a Phantom Zone. They're all sort of ghosts walking around. Supergirl's set up with the Kandor City that they can maybe be rehabilitated if they meet criteria. They'll get put back into Kandor and they can get back into society. Very few of them will ever actually meet the criteria, but at least it's there if they have the option, so it's not just an eternal prison. So, right, fair enough, all fine. So they do a tease here where there's one zoner who's not accounted for. They think they're accounted for, but we see, what is this Cyborg Superman? I'm not actually sure.
It has to be, because that's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah, it's someone.
He's got the Terminator eye.
Yeah, it's like someone in shadows with a Terminator eye. We don't really see any other details, but there is a Superman suit. And maybe if you look at the just the far side of him, you can maybe make it a metallic arm. Maybe.
Yeah.
Just maybe. But was he in the Phantom Zone?
I don't know at this point.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I can't tell you the last time I read Cyborg Superman.
Yeah, Mon-El has become the warden of the Phantom Zone. He's there to like sort of be there on the behalf of Kandor to assess and sort of see if they're actually becoming better people. Blah blah blah. So I mean that's all fine. I was a little bummed though because last episode I actually said out loud I'll be annoyed if Mark Waid doesn't pay off Clark teasing Kara about her as like a 12-year-old, and because he saw her in Krypton. And I was like, I want that moment. I want the moment where he brings it up just for the joke. And I was not satisfied. They did not do it. It didn't come up at all. Everything's super serious.
Ooh. And also, like, how are they... The whole exile from Kandor thing, too. I feel like that was just something that Wade threw in there, and now he decided to have that more payoff than anything with Kara and Clark. And to have Kara be the emissary between them, too, I'm just like, I don't... Like, I get it, but I don't understand why it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean... I appreciated last issue that Kara went to the Science Council in Kandor and tried to talk to them about what's going on, and them basically being dicks like they always are, and Kara becoming disillusioned with them in the same way that Jor-El and so on had been in the past on Krypton. I like that part of it because Kara is someone from Krypton who remembers it, and her experiencing this sort of like bullshit bureaucracy that's getting in the way of anything getting done. And her becoming like angry with them means a lot because she understands the consequences of those decisions more than anyone perhaps does. I appreciated that element to it, but yeah, I think a lot of the wrap-up stuff here just kind of feels a little bit easy and contrived is obviously the word we used a lot before, because yeah, the way they deal with the Phantom Zoners and the fact that the real Xadu just shows up at the last minute is just a bunch of nonsense to me.
Yeah, you do the contrivance of them using it as a trap, right? And it's just Martian Manhunter, and the real Xadu doesn't come out at all. And I think that improves the story just a little bit.
Oh, it absolutely does, yeah.
So, you add that, and then all of this stuff here, and then, like, sure, the tease of Cyborg Superman's cool, but, like, again, I just wish I remembered the last time we saw Cyborg Superman.
Yeah.
So, like, him being in the Phantom Zone, like, make it clear that if you're going to tease that a little bit, kind of clear, do something that kind of mentioned Cyborg Superman earlier on when they're in the Phantom Zone. I don't know.
Actually, just to be clear here, actually, on that little tease, the implication actually is that he's in the Phantom Zone right now, because we see a panel of like two zoners who are like ghosty walking away from this big rock, and then Cyborg Superman's behind that rock. So the implication here is not so much that he is still free from the Phantom Zone, it's that he is actually somehow made it into the Phantom Zone in his corporeal form. Okay,
so that makes more sense then too. He somehow got in there.
Yeah, so what that's teasing, I mean, who knows? Maybe it's if anything, I would guess because Wade's writing Justice League Unlimited that it's maybe teasing a future plot in that. But yeah, this has been a really weird up and down Action Comics story. And if I'm comparing it to the 12-issue Detective we got like 2 years ago now with Tamaki, like I definitely preferred that Detective 12 issues. That wasn't perfect, but I definitely preferred it as a whole a lot more than this.
And it treated it episodically in a I feel a better way than here, because this just felt like 3-4 issue arcs, right? Just boom, boom, boom. I remember with the Tower, it felt like we were rotating around characters without that kind of. It felt like a bigger 12 issue story. So, but again, that just comes down to the writer style and whatnot. Yeah, I just wish that it had stuck the landing, because there was a lot of stuff up to the last 2 issues I really enjoyed. And then the last 2, it kind of felt like we were limping towards the end unnecessarily, because he had plenty of space to write the story. It's not like he had to. It's not like he had to shorten certain aspects. It's like, did we need to spend that much time on Krypton with Clark in the past if you're not going to pay off anything?
Let's go back to a previous conversation we had. Do you think that time we spent with Connor and Keenan amounted to anything
outside of him taking over the Kund? No. Not at all.
Yeah, but right? the only way that came up is that when they were tracking down the Kryptonians, there was one panel of the Armada behind them being like, hey, I've got an Armada. But that was it. It never. It was.
Right.
It was like a throwaway panel. It didn't mean anything.
Right.
It didn't matter.
Right. You know. So you're absolutely correct.
There's what, like 10 issues of like side stuff that you could have like freed up to develop some of the story beats more, or hell, just shorten the issue count down. Maybe that could get rid of a couple issues right there and get it down to 10. Maybe it'd have been a little bit better.
And again, I understand the whole idea for the Keenan and Khan stuff was to give Clayton Henry some space, right? Because you're having another artist come in there to take up page counts. But I mean, surely there's better ways to what's the word I'm looking for, to execute that, right? Like written execution. But yeah, it kind of felt hollow towards the end here, you know, and I was hoping that he was going to stick the landing, and he stumbled a bit at the end.
It felt like nothing meaningful really happened by the end. Like nothing meaningful has been learned. Unless you really care about touching moments between Superman and Mon-El. And to be honest, as far as like side Superman characters go, Mon-El's kind of near the bottom of my list, so I don't really give that much of a shit if he dies of lead poisoning, if I'm perfectly honest.
No, I mean the stabilization of the Phantom Zone and the whole ethical conversation about it, I do appreciate from that aspect of it.
That was the most interesting. I think that, and then also the conflict with the Science Council and Krypton were, I think, the more interesting elements of this whole story.
Right. But again, you could have done that in 6 issues. I don't think you didn't need 12. So, but you know, we're done with that now, and we jump back to monthly Action Comics.
Yeah, and it was almost like oh, we couldn't just tell the interesting story about politics on Krypton and like how the decisions they made and how Superman and Kara feel about that. We had to like have villains that show up for a fight, and so we have to do the Zoners escaping and all that stuff that we've had the last few issues. It just all feels like tacked on for the sake of comic book action, as opposed to it being important to the story. Because it ultimately, you know, I use that word again, it felt like fluff a lot of the time towards the end. So yeah, it's a shame. Luckily, the backup, however, has been much more interesting. So the sort of the epilogue to that here, after the prisoner has like consumed or merged with her brother to create a new being of sorts. Is basically just, okay, where are we now? And Supergirl kind of like realizing, okay, she is now both, like the prisoner is both of them, and she tells the I don't even know what you call this group, the United Planets Council, or
it's the Thanagar outpost, right? So these are all Thanagarians here.
Yeah, and like, mission successful, delivered the prisoner to this station where they will maintain. And they will learn. Basically, the prisoner is going to keep learning what it means to destroy a world. So you see the prisoner researching, and that robot that was with Kara's kind of the prison guard there now. Sort of keeping him company, or keeping them company. Maybe.
Keeping them company. Yeah, and I do love that the robot looks happy that this is the job now, right? Because there's all the little music notes.
Oh yeah.
I imagine him going around making like do.
Well, the robot wanted purpose, and now the robot has a nice simple purpose. And then Kara gives back the power that she got from them to complete this mission, which was the eye thing that she was doing with people. Which, to be fair, if I was going to make a critique, I think after a point that didn't really matter that much, because I almost forgot about it when she pulled it out of her eye here.
Me too.
Yeah, it's been a while, so I that's a small critique I would maybe levy at it. But Kara has a little heart-to-heart with Karen, and they basically pawn
Paige.
Yeah?
It's Paige. Power Girl's name is Paige now. That's the name she took.
Oh, she changed her name?
Yeah. I talked about that in the Power Girl book.
Okay, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. No.
But it was Karen though. I'm not losing my mind here.
You're not.
Okay, fine.
Now especially this version of her, right? That has the the portaling kind of power. So
this is Paige. So is it Paige Star?
I have to go back and it's been a minute since I read Power Girl because I've been so behind.
Okay, fair enough.
I have to remember, but it is Paige because they kept calling her PG, right? Because she wanted her own new identity.
Whoa. That's Psycho Gorman.
Yes.
PG for short. That's Psycho Gorman.
So Omen goes, PG, that kind of sounds like Paige. And she goes, oh, I kind of like that. So she starts going by Paige.
All right, fair enough. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's easier than Kara and Karen because those are so close.
Yes.
So I appreciate it in that level. But I thought I was going mad there. I'm like, has it always been Paige? Am I losing my mind?
No, it was Karen Starr back in Justice
Yes.
Society all those years ago.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's the name that I've got in my head. Anyway, but anyways, this Kara sort of theorizes that she's the one person who, like, this is why Superman picked her, is that she knows what it feels like to lose a world, to have a world be destroyed, and this person, this prisoner, had felt the guilt of destroying a world, so Kara was the best person to try and not forgive her for it, but give some sort of understanding from the other side of that happening and make her, help her understand what that meant and what it was.
Well, she understands the fear and the wrath of it, right?
Yeah.
And that was I feel like that was the whole point of Tamaki going back and using those scenes of Woman of Tomorrow, because that's a very kind of angry Kara at play. So it shows that she has that understanding of the anger side of things and being motivated by that. And so, yeah, she's kind of has that balance down. She can adapt to that better than most.
Yeah, particularly the part where she says, oh, like, after the devastation, like, out of that pain, something greater and longer lasting can come. And, you know, she's kind of talking about herself, talking about Clark, talking about, like, the good that they can do. So it just ends with a final page of her and Power Girl flying off because there's a crisis somewhere. Interestingly, it says at the bottom, Supergirl's daring adventures will continue in 2025. Now, what that means precisely is we don't know yet, but it certainly sounds like it's teasing at least a story in a book, if not maybe her own book. So, if we get a Tamaki ongoing Supergirl book, I would be delighted.
Let's go.
Absolutely delighted.
Come up winning, right? You have a Batgirl, you know, with Cass going on, and then you get Supergirl showing up by Tamaki.
Yeah, but so, I mean, you can't argue that's a tease for something. So
no,
we'll see.
Absolutely.
Because if it wasn't like a specific tease, it would be like, oh, see more of Supergirl's adventures throughout, you know, DC Comics or something. Yeah, it would be very vague, whereas that's a bit more specific. So, no, I mean, it was a really solid backup. It was kind of the highlight of this 12-issue thing, and when they put this all together, however they collect it, it might end up being like a 100-page little trade of just this backup. I mean, is it that many? 12 times 8?
Is
about what's that, give or take?
12 times 5 is 60. So add another. I'm terrible at math. That's about 96 pages, right?
Yeah, that sounds right. 96.
Yeah,
that sounds right. Yeah, my math days are long behind me. I'm sorry to say, or I'm happy to say. Yeah, and that really good, and I've really enjoyed the art in the backup as well. Very expressive. It's always like her hair always looks so majestic with all the swirls and like how flowing it looks, and it always just gives all of her big superhero moments a lot of majesty, I guess. It's weird to say that about someone's hair, but it does add something there that's not because we spend a lot of time looking at comics with people in masks or with short hair. The long hair really adds something.
But no, she has very luscious hair. You know, like in that page where she looks, where it's at the bottom of the page where she's talking to Power Girl, and she goes, "No, but I have a feeling now."
Yeah,
and it feels tactile. You know,
there's volume to it, right?
Yeah,
it's important for Wonder Woman as well. Actually, I'm thinking about Wonder Woman's usually got, you know, if you go back to like some of her classic stories, like it's almost
especially
like
Perez.
Yeah, the bigger the hair, the more important she feels.
Yeah,
bizarrely.
Yeah. Well, so, and again, you get that's true of Starfire as well, right? When Perez drew her in the 80s, you know, her you know, the propulsion would look like it was coming from her hair because it was so long and luscious that you know, it was a character trait of hers. And not necessarily this is a character trait for Kara, but it does also separate her from Power Girl, who has a more traditional bob cut.
Yeah, I never liked in the New 52 when Kara had the sort of short cut. Yeah, I never looked Supergirl to me. Like, I'm just so used to her with the longer hair. Anywho, all right. I mean, obviously it's weird to rate this one because the backup is such a strong thing versus the main story. But what are you rating Action Comics?
I'm gonna give it a 6.5, and that's heavily weighted back towards the backup.
Yeah, I think that sounds about fair overall. Because the main story is probably like a 5 or maybe even a bit lower than that, honestly, which is really sad to say. But the backup, well, it's just kind of an epilogue issue that, you know, like I've enjoyed the backup so much that it probably drags it up to at least the 6 range. So I'll say that, but it's kind of a weird one to rate because I have two very different opinions on the
Yeah.
two parts of it.